terms are y cubed plus y cubed. That's right, because they have the same variable and the same exponent. So what does that give me? Y cubed plus y cubed is what? 2y, because you're adding your exponent. You're adding your coefficient. So that's a 1, and that's a 1. That gives you 2. Okay? Yep. So you have minus x squared plus 4x squared. What does that give me? Plus 3x squared. Right? You have minus 1. You're adding 4. So that gives you plus. And then the 9, take away 3. That gives you plus 6. I can't do anything anymore, right? Because it's in simple form. There's no more like terms that I can collect. Yep.
Can you do like 4 and D?
Yep.
There is no x value or no how.
There might be a mistake there. This should be x. X cubed plus x squared minus x plus 1. Okay? Change the y to x. There is a mistake in question 4D. Is that right? Is it 4D? Yeah. Okay, 4D. Instead of the y's, so instead of like a half y cubed plus y squared minus y, you're going to change these y's to x. So whatever is inside the bracket, instead of y, make it x. 4D. Okay, then you guys asked me to do a question from question number 3. D. Okay, so what do we have here? So a half y minus 2x. Let's do D. And then it's asking us to evaluate when x equals to a half, is it? And then y equals negative or positive? Okay. So part of this is what we learned yesterday as well when we are adding and multiplying fractions, because x and y are fractions here. So I'm going to replace y with negative 2/3, and I'm going to replace x with a half. So that's going to be 1/2 negative 2/3 minus 2 times a half. So what do you do when you have a half times negative 2/3? That's correct. So when you multiply 1 by what? By negative 2, right? Okay, what do you get? Negative 2. So that's going to be negative 2 because I'm multiplying the numerator by the numerator. And then I have to multiply the denominator by the denominator, so that's going to be over 6. And how about this one? Two by 1, right? So basically, any whole number is divided by 1, right? So you can write this as fraction 2. So that's going to be negative 2 times 1, that's 2. 1 times 2 is 2. Okay? Because a whole number is 2/1. Can I simplify this? Or do I want, before I simplify, do I want to find common denominator and add? What do you guys want to do? It doesn't matter. Common denominator first before we simplify? We can do that. What would be your common denominator here? So my common denominator is 6. That's right. Oops. Why is it 6? What are the multiples of 6? 6, 12, right? 18. What are the multiples of 2? 2, 4, 6. So you see that 6 is my lowest common multiple. Okay? This is what we did yesterday. So 6, that's already there, so I don't have to multiply anything. I leave it as is. What do I multiply this one by to give me 6? 3. Anything I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So I have to multiply the top by 6. By 3, sorry, to give me 6. So that simplifies to negative 8 over 6, because I have a negative 2, take away 6. Are we okay with that?
I did it differently. I ended up taking it out of the fraction,
Mm-hmm.
doing it in decimals, but I think I got the same answer.
I don't want decimals in grade 11 unless I ask you, right? When I give you fractions, I'm expecting fractions out, okay? So we're going to have to end up with a fraction. Now, this can be simplified. This is not the lowest term. So what can I divide both of them by? 2. So I end up with negative 4 over 3 because I can divide by 2 to simplify. Are we okay with this? Any other questions that you would like me to take up?
I thought if the negative sign is in front of the actual fraction, that's like both top and bottom is negative.
No, because if both top and bottom are negative, right, they cancel each other and becomes 2 over 3, right? So this or this or this, they mean exactly the same thing. If you have the negative for the top, the negative in the middle, or the negative at the bottom, they're exactly the same fraction, right? But we usually write it as in the middle, right? We usually write it like this. This is the proper way to write it. Okay? But it won't be for both. Are we okay with this? Any other questions from this worksheet? Okay, let's do a quick lesson about rounding, and then I'll give you guys time to work on these 2 worksheets. So there are several rounding methods. However, in this course, we use the common simple method. So we're going to be basically going to the simplest way that we can round. So the first thing that we're going to do is you're going to have to decide which digit you need to round your answer to. Okay? So that would be your last digit that you're going to leave. You're going to leave that digit the same if the next digit is less than 5. Increase the digit by 1 if the next digit is greater than 5. Okay? If you know any other method, don't worry about them, because in this course, we're just going to do this simple method, which is if your next digit is greater than 5, you're going to increase if it's greater than or equal to 5, I should say. Greater than or equal to. Or equal to 5, then you're going to round up, and then if it's less than 5, you're going to keep it the same. Okay? So, Sometimes the question is going to ask you to round to the nearest 1 decimal, 2 decimal, to the nearest whole number, to the nearest 10, right? But a lot of time we don't say to the nearest 1 decimal, to the nearest 2 decimal. We use the actual terminology for it. So first, let's start with the ones. Which one of these numbers represent your ones? The 4, right? So this is, if you look at this, right, just before the decimal, so this is your ones. Which digit will represent your tens? Tens? Tens, so that's 34, no? Right, 34, so this is your tens. And then the 2 is called the hundreds. And then this is the thousands, right? What do we call the 5, which is the first number after the decimal? The 10th. That's right. So it's going to be the 10th with a TH after the word. So 10th. Okay? Anything after the decimal is going to have the ending of TH. How about the 6? What do we call that? 100th. And this is going to be the thousands. I don't know how to spell. All right. So let's look at the first question. The first question is asking you to round to the nearest 10. So what number represents my 10? The 3, right? So this is the one that I'm going to keep. What's after the 3? A 2. So that means do I round the 3 up or do I keep it the same? So what would this equal? 30. Right? It's 30 because to the nearest 10. So 32, you're going to have to think about it this way. 32 is closer to 30 or 40? 30. How about 127.9? What would you round that to the nearest 10? 130. So the number that I'm keeping is the 2. Right? After the 2, there is a 7, so I have to round up to 130. Are we okay with that? Okay. Now, with a decimal, there's going to be a little bit difference. We don't need to keep the zeros. With the regular numbers, we have to keep the zeros. Okay, because they have to hold its place, right? So if this is the tens, right, I need to have something for the ones. But for anything after the decimal, so if I have, let's say, 14, we'll talk about it right here. So if I'm going to round to the nearest 10th, which number is my 10th? The 1. The 1 is my 10th, right? What's after that 1? So what do I do with the 1? Round it up. Round it up to 2. So that's going to be 14.2. You see that now I don't have to keep zeros for the other digits. Okay? Because there's no need for it. Are we okay with that? How do you round this to the nearest 10th? 0.3, right? Again, this is my 10th digit, so that this 3 is my 10th digit. After it is a 0, so I don't need to change that 3. To round to the nearest hundredth, so I'm looking at 3.125. Which digit is my hundredth? 2. What comes after the 2? So what do I have to do with the 2? Round it up to 3. Okay? Because if it's 5 or greater, I have to round it up. My hundredth number here is 9. The first 9? Okay. So if I'm rounding this first 9 up, and why do I need to round it up, by the way? Yeah, because there is a higher number behind it. That's right, higher than 5. Okay, so if I'm rounding that 9 up, that's going to be 10. Yes? So because that's going to become 10, we're going to have to cascade it to the one before that. So that's going to be 142.1. But because I want it to the nearest hundredth, that I have to hold another position here because it has to be to 2 decimal place. That's what it means. Okay? But in this case, I already have the 2 decimal place. I don't need to include anything else. Does that make sense? Yeah. For this one, yes, because I want the answer to 2 decimal place. Okay? Are we okay with that? Are we okay why I kept it to 1 and 0, not only 1? Technically, it's the same thing. 142.1 or 142.10, they're exactly the same answer. The only difference is that the first one is only accurate to 1 decimal place, while the second one is accurate to 2 decimal places. And when it comes to, right now in the math that we do, it's not as important, but if you decide to do other type of math or if to do physics or chemistry, you have to be accurate to a certain number of decimals, okay? Which we call them significant digits, okay? And this is very important. That means you're accurate to 2 decimal places, while this is your accuracy is only to 1 decimal place. So if it's asking you to round to the nearest hundredth, you need to have 2 places, 2 decimal places. Okay, nearest hundredth thousands for this one. Where's the number that I have to keep? 6. What do I do with it because I have a 5 after it? I have to round it up to 7, so everything else stays the same except this number rounds up to 7.
Would the other one be 100?
Mm-hmm. Why would it be 100?
Because they're all 9s.
That's right. We have a cascade here, right? If you go to the, you go shopping, right? And then they tell you the price is $99.99. How would you round that? 100. That's exactly what we have here, right? So we're rounding up to the nearest thousands, so to the nearest this. After that 9, we have a 5. So we must round this up, right? To round the 9 up, it's going to round to the 10. So that means it's going to go to this one. And this is going to become a 10 as well. It's going to go here, right? This is going to round up as well. This is going to round up as well. So this is going to be 100. But I can't leave it as just 100 because I want it to the nearest thousands. So how many zeros do I have after the decimal? 3. So this is going to be 100 decimal 0, 0, 0. Are we okay with that?